Welcome to Section 6 of Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. We'll now rejoin Ron McMillan, who will teach the final principle of dialogue, move to action. At this point in our crucial conversation, we've built safety, we've stated our meaning, we've amped others, the shared pool is now full. The final principles tell us how the best at dialogue move from filling the pool to making decisions and taking action.
Where are we now? We've maintained safety, worked through turbulent emotions, contributed meaning to the shared pool in risky situations, and helped others to do the same. As a result, all who have participated in the dialogue are significantly smarter and more committed. Now it's time for action. In this session, we'll talk not about filling the pool, but about coming to closure. Closure raises its own issues. Making assignments, making decisions, holding people accountable, all of these topics can generate risky and difficult issues. Don't forget to use the skills we covered in previous sessions as the need arises. In coming to closure, the best, the dialogue smart, avoid two common pitfalls in decision-making. First, they avoid repetitive dialogues on the same issues by documenting decisions and holding each other accountable for action. Second, they don't confuse dialogue with decision-making. They get upfront agreement on how decisions will be made, so they avoid the curse of over-involvement. Let's cover each of these points in greater detail. Getting all relevant meaning into the shared pool can be really tough, but the transition from filling the pool to coming to closure can be difficult as well. Some teams do a great job of getting everybody on board initially, then fall apart at the end. They usually fall apart for one of two reasons. Either they have unclear or ineffective expectations about how decisions will be made, or they do a poor job of retaining and acting on the decisions they do make. I was part of a consulting team asked to work with a multi-billion-dollar new startup company. We were helping them develop a team structure and effective leadership. I was invited to attend a meeting called to plan an upcoming leadership workshop. As preparation, I was given a list of quote-unquote teaming guidelines that had as one of the guidelines, all decisions are consensus decisions. When I took my seat in the meeting room, I was surprised that there were 31 people attending a planning meeting. When I asked why so many, I was told they wanted to have representation from all parts of the organization. The Director of Organizational Development welcomed everyone, referred to the agenda, and began with Item 1, audiovisual needs. Someone suggested a flip chart and marking pens. Another person quickly added that the marking pens should be red to communicate excitement. Another forcefully disagreed, saying that red connotes deficits and losses, and we should use the green markers to suggest profit and positive cash flow. I was amazed as others joined in the discussion and the meeting leader tried to get to consensus. I couldn't believe they were talking about this. I actually timed the discussion. They spent 24 minutes trying to reach a decision on whether to use red or green marking pens. Finally, the leader suggested we provide both colors and let the presenter choose which one to use. The leader got agreement from all and moved on to the next issue. 31 people spent 24 minutes deciding on the color of markers. Can you believe it? And this was characteristic of how decisions were made throughout this whole company. We helped them realize over time that they didn't want all decisions consensus. Rather, what they really wanted was effective decisions. And in some situations, consensus is the least effective way to decide. In good teams, most decisions are not made by consensus. Consensus and consultation should only be used when the potential benefit of an improved decision is worth the great cost of time and energy spent in dialogue. For example, it's actually possible to derive a pretty accurate estimate of room temperature by averaging the estimates of 30 or so people. That's an interesting illustration of the power of involvement and of a reason not to involve everyone in problem solving. After all, why would you want to involve 30 people in determining the room temperature when one person and a cheap thermometer will do? Ineffective decision-making will quickly undermine the effort to obtain superior results. I was asked to help an executive team overcome some conflicts and difficulties they were having. Some people issues is how they described it. I went in, met the team, we talked about what I was doing, and then I interviewed the boss. I said, well, from your point of view, what's the problem with the team? She said, my people will not participate. They won't give ideas. They won't engage in any meaningful dialogue. They're like lumps on a log. As I interviewed the team members, there seemed to be a broadly felt consensus that, quote, our boss is manipulative, authoritarian, and thinks we're idiots. Well, I tried to get specific examples, and the team members shared with me that the first week the new boss came in, they were all kind of excited and wondered how the new boss operated, and the boss called a meeting. She said, we have an important decision that must be made today regarding whether we follow option A or B. I want you to prepare well, then let's get together and hear what you come up with. Well, the team studied it out in great detail. They prepared themselves, they talked to each other, and finally they joined together in a long meeting, shared their conclusions and the reasons for those conclusions. The team decided A was the best option. The boss thanked them, adjourned the meeting, and the next day announced they would be going with option B. I asked the team members, so what did you think when the boss decided a different direction? One said, she knew all along what she was going to decide. She was just manipulating us. Another said, oh, that's so weird. She asks us to decide, then reverses our decision. I think it's a political message. Another said, if she was going to make the decision all along, why make us jump through these hoops? When I spoke with the boss about her first decision, her first public decision with that team, I asked her what happened. She said, I wanted their input so I could make the very best decision. Called them together, we discussed it, I thought about it, called some specialists, gathered some data, thought about it some more, and I decided B was the way to go rather than A, the option they recommended. So in this situation, the boss had assumed that she would gather the team's input, consider it carefully, and make the best decision. The team, on the other hand, assumed that it was a joint decision, that all of them together would decide. And so when the boss suddenly announced a different direction than the team had decided, they felt like they had been undercut. They felt like she had exerted her power. As a result, in future team meetings, they refused to participate. They went to silence. They were polite, they were cordial, but they wouldn't talk about issues and they wouldn't volunteer opinion because they felt they would be second-guessed by their boss and that this was all a manipulation. In effective teams, most decisions are made by command of the specialist who has skills to address the problem. Some decisions are made by consulting, getting input from others, then having a subgroup or individual decide. And a few decisions are of such importance that they escalate to consensus. Everyone must agree. Oh yes, there's also one more technique, voting. When you have many good options to choose from and lots of opinions, sometimes it helps to take a vote. This can speed things up and help reduce a long list. Of course, if you're making an extremely important choice that affects everyone, use consensus, don't vote, because this can make winners and losers. Teams need to clarify how the final decision will be made before using dialogue. Let me summarize. There are 4 types of decision-making. First is command. One person decides with no involvement from others. The second is consult. Everyone gives input, then a subset of one or more makes the decision. Consensus. Everyone must agree. And finally comes voting. In the example of the dysfunctional team, the boss assumed it was a consult decision. The team was assuming it was a consensus decision. And what resulted was violated expectations. Well, I met with the team. I reviewed with them what I had found in talking with them, and I shared with them a very important principle, that when it comes to decision making, often the most important thing to decide is how to decide. I taught them command. It's my neck on the line. I have all the information. I'll decide. Consult. Boss says, you have important views. This is going to affect you. I want your input. Then I'll decide, seeing it's my decision. Or consensus. This is really important. It affects all of us. I want us all in agreement before we go forward. And finally, voting. After teaching them the 4 options and kind of coaching them about how to dialogue about deciding, they felt that this would be a good structure, a good discipline for them, and they proceeded on this basis. I got a chance to meet with them 6 weeks later. I asked them how it was going. They said things were going great. Are they using the decision-making methodology I shared with them? They said yes, they were, and it was working very well. I asked if I could come sit in on a team meeting. The leader said, you're sure welcome, and the team members agreed. It was interesting. As they reviewed the agenda, the team leader said, all right, we have a tough decision we've got to make, and our client needs an answer by 10 o'clock. She looked at her watch. It was now 8 o'clock. She said, I would prefer that this be a consensus decision and that we all agree on the way going forward. However, if consensus has not been reached by 9:45, then I propose it'll be a consult decision, and I will decide. Are we in agreement? The team members said, yeah, sounds good to us. And they began working on coming to consensus. They enlarged the pool. They were very good at inviting others to share, sharing their points of view. I saw some wonderful examples of the use of the dialogue skills. And come 9:45, the team leader said, well, are we in agreement here? As she polled the different members, she found they were not. She said, as we agreed up front, if we couldn't reach consensus decision by 9:45, then it would become a consult decision. So here's what I've decided. The team members agreed, began taking assignments, and went out to support their part of the project.